years, do their their service, their duty, and go back to their their career. So, for instance, like I don't know, think of any career. They get called to serve. They go serve for a few years. They do their duty, and then they go back to their career. We should not have lifetime politicians. A politician should not be a career. That is not the way that our forefathers wanted this country to be set up as, and that is why our country is in complete and absolute decay. So anyways, and that same thing is true with our salvation. Because see guys, I've said this many times, the true meaning to life, okay, and they talk about this, and you've probably all heard the story, the fall of man, the story of Adam and Eve, which again is not something historical. It is a symbolic, allegorical story. And it basically signifies Adam and Eve were in, and there's a book of Adam and Eve that was not put in the Bible, which was found in the Vatican archives, and it's been translated. I forget the guy's name. I think it's Edward Selesky or something. But if you just go online and look for the first book of Adam and Eve, they talk about how Adam's talking to Eve, like Eve, because they were banished, they were living in a cave, and he said, we were in heaven, we were in heaven, we had light bodies, not these, material bodies that we have now. And that's another symbolic meaning, which means that our soul, which is what materializes in this reality, all right, we are not our body. This is not us. Most people get very confused about that, and they think if they can't see it, touch it, feel it, taste it, hear it, it's not real, and that is insanity. That is insanity, because our souls are not, manifest necessarily. Like you can't dissect somebody and find their soul, but the soul exists, and throughout our history, people have talked about the soul, and even today we say, that person, this or that person has no soul, without even really understanding the meaning to it. And the soul is basically the mediator between our spirit self, because we do have a spirit self as well, that is in a higher level of reality, like the Hindus called our higher self, which represents the seventh chakra. Kundalini rising goes up through the skull, through your higher self chakra, all right? And that is when you shed your material body and you move up to higher levels of reality, higher spheres, all right? But anyways, our soul is our mediator between our spirit self, which is unmanifest, it's not material, to this material world. So, have you ever, for instance, your conscience is part of your soul. That is where that comes from. And, for anybody that has a hard time, believing in God or anything like that, or a higher power, which one thing I would recommend is find a God of your understanding. All right, unlearn all the religious teachings. All right, unlearn all the religious teachings, all the dogmas of all the teachings, all the religions, and find what you think God is. All right, listen to your heart, listen to your soul, and let it tell you what God is. Okay, that's what I have done, and the way to do that is through meditation, and again, unlearning what you have learned throughout your life. And reading books, like Manly P. Hall's books, Lectures on Ancient Philosophy, Plato, Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages, or Manly P. Hall's The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, or the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, all these books are extremely important for finding the true God, the true first cause, not what religion says is the true first cause. But, that's what, for those of you struggling to believe in God, the conscience should prove that, or for instance, like, I was an alcoholic and drug addict, and I used to go to 12-step meetings, and I heard a lead from a guy that was just incredible, and this guy was the worst dad ever. He was never around, which a lot of alcoholic fathers and mothers are like that, and he said that what proved to him there was a God is that he treated his young daughter horribly. He didn't, beat her, but he was never around, and he was always messed up around her. And whenever he came home, he could be gone for months at a time. Whenever he came home, she would always, always love him. And he said to himself that that must be God, because I did not teach her that. I did not teach her that love. And for those of you parents out there, you may realize and agree with me that when you have a child and that child grows up a little bit, that child has a personality that you did not give it. They have their own personality that is unlike yours, until they get into our society and they get corrupted, but anyways, they have their own personality that is not like of this earth or of genetic, manifestation. So that is the soul. And in Plato's dialogue, Socrates, in the beginning, I think it's either Ion or Meno. Yeah, Meno. Socrates shows a guy named Menon. Yeah, of course, Menon, how, and he takes a young boy, that's just walking on the street, and he shows Meno how we do not learn, we remember. Okay? We do not learn, we remember, because we have learned things in other, either other lives, other realities, because he takes a boy, he draws up a diagram, and this boy's very young. I mean, he does not know this stuff. And Socrates asks him questions certain ways without giving him an answer. He asked him questions certain ways, and the boy could answer it right. So he was remembering. He was not, learning. He was remembering. And that's what's wrong with another thing that's wrong with our society and our education systems is that we are teaching, okay? We aren't helping kids to remember what they've already learned. Which is what the mystery schools did. And, our school systems came from the mystery schools. Plato really was the first person to start. He started an academy. And it was in practice for 800 some years. All right. He started really the first school system. And but it was basically, essentially, a mystery school. And they taught through symbols, allegories, and stories. They did not tell you what to think a symbol meant. All right. So, for instance, like on the back of, if you're a U.S. citizen, on the back of your dollar bill, the enigmatical pyramid with the all-seeing eye. A lot of people think that's an evil symbol. That is not an evil symbol. Now, has it been used for an evil symbol? Probably, which is why people think it is. But that represented the pyramid. I'm not going to get into the whole thing right now, but it is not an evil symbol. The pyramid represents something good, because everything, if you notice in life, comes in threes. Just like the Trinity of Christianity, the Trinity of Hinduism. Every ancient religion had a Trinity: Father, Mother, Son. Okay, everything comes in threes, and that is what the pyramid represents. All right. And the all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid represents the first cause, represents the one. In Plato's teachings and Proclus's teachings, you had the one, the beautiful, and the good. All right, that was the first manifestation of the first cause. The one, the beautiful, and the good. And everything else came from the one, the beautiful, and the good. But anyways, so they taught through symbols, and you had to do your own work within. And first of all, in order to get into the mystery schools, you had to prove that you were a good person of good morals and good virtues. You could not, like for instance, Nero, he would not even come close to the ceremonies of the mysteries, because he knew that he was unworthy, and they would not even allow him to participate in the ceremonies of the mysteries. Same with Constantine. When he killed his family, he would not go near the mystery schools because he knew he was unworthy. So you had to be worthy to get into these mystery schools. But these mystery schools would develop the soul. They would develop your soul within and bring it back to its primitive perfection. Okay, that is what the fall of man symbolizes, the story of Adam and Eve. And I guess I kind of got off track there. But that is what it symbolizes. Adam and Eve were in the higher spheres of reality, the higher levels, the levels beyond the duality of our world, beyond the duality of our reality, the good and evil and all the dualities, all the opposites. And they fell their soul fell into a material reality, into a material body of duality and matter, which to the ancients matter was the lowest form, the lowest element of the universe. It was what they considered evil. In spirit was the highest. It was the good, and that is what we had to get back to. We had to get out of our material, bodies and back to where we came from, the meaning of life. But see, here's the thing, and people throughout, history, our forefathers, from the beginning of time, have tried to figure out why God, who is perfect and all loving, all powerful, not a vengeful God, okay? He loves us unconditionally, no matter what we do, and that's another problem with Christianity. They say that, but if you read the Bible, it contradicts itself. Where Yahweh tells Moses and his people to go kill everyone and take the promised land, and that is not what God would tell Moses to do. Okay, but anyways, God is all loving and all powerful, and I forget where I was going with that. Wow, I lost my train of thought. But that's the meaning of life. I was going to say how evil is used for, for a good purpose. Because see, without, I don't want to say evil, you know what I'm saying, duality is used for a good purpose. Because without duality, we wouldn't know happiness. The old saying that, without rain we couldn't appreciate the sunshine. Without darkness we couldn't appreciate the light. Without sadness we couldn't appreciate happiness. And God uses that for a good cause, which is to develop us, to evolve us, because evolution is true. We don't evolve from apes, but we do evolve through our many lives that we've had on this earth. We do evolve, okay? But the meaning of life, just as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, is to get on the spiritual path, okay? It's to get on the spiritual path and to realize God, to realize our Father. That is why we were put on this earth. But we have temptations, and that is one of the great symbols of the mystery schools. They would take their initiates through many temptations. If you look at the Great Pyramid was used as an initiation temple. Okay, and if you look at the many pathways and tombs, they call it tombs. But the many pathways and rooms, they represented the different paths that you had to go through in your initiation, which represented the different pathways that you went in your life. Either through vice or through virtue. Okay, either through succumbing to your human nature, your lower animal nature, or to your higher spiritual nature. So that is, and Plato talks about this. Socrates talks about this in Plato's dialogues, and when he is sentenced to death, he talks about the soul and developing the soul, and this is where the stories of hell or Hades come from, because those that do live a life of vice and evil and ignorance, okay, they are not going to have a happy afterlife, and they will be reborn again into a bad family. Like for instance, the ghettos, the bad neighborhoods. Most of those people probably lived a life of vice and ignorance, possibly even evil, in past lives, and they have to change. They have to change in order, because you can get on the spiritual path at any time. If you've lived a life of, which I did, but if you've lived a life of vice and ignorance, you can change at any time and get on the spiritual path. Now, you will have to burn through the karma that you've acquired, but it's better to do it now than to just let it keep piling up and getting worse and worse. But I want to digress here on this topic into another one about the soul, and I love the way Socrates puts a symbolic, allegorical example in Phaedo about how the soul is immortal. Because, he's getting ready to drink the poison and die, and his followers are in there talking to Socrates, and, they want to know how he knows, because Socrates is just calm as can be, and he is not worried about dying, and he knows that he was falsely sent to death, or he should not have been sent to death. But anyways, if you want to know that whole story, just read the Apology and Phaedo and Crito. But anyways, he's talking about how everything, and I touched on this for a minute, how everything in the world has its opposite. All right, everything in the world has its opposite. Just like awake, asleep, light, darkness, good, evil. Everything has its opposite. Now, everything is also becoming from its opposite. So, for instance, in order for you to be awake, like me being awake right now, I came from sleep. Okay, I was asleep, and then I woke up and became awake. In order for you to be asleep, you had to go from being awake to being asleep. In order for something to be hot, it had to be cold. In order for something to be cold, it had to be hot. Okay, you see what I'm saying? But now, they never mix together. So, for instance, if something becomes cold, okay, that does not mean that the hot was destroyed. That just means that the hot left and cold entered in. Same with awake and asleep. It does not mean that you're never going to go to asleep again. Okay, it just means that sleep left, and you became awake. All right, you became in a wakeful state. So, therefore, the soul. All right, now how can we say that there is no life after death? Because, see, life comes from death, and death comes from life. Everything becomes from its opposite. Just as the tree and all of nature during wintertime goes into a state of hibernation or death, all right? Then comes springtime, along with the sun also goes into its its state of hibernation. And come springtime is born again. The trees and nature is born again, all right? Just like the mysterious phoenix, the myth of the phoenix lives for 900 years, which again, 9 represents man, and dies, and from its ashes is born again to live another 900 years into a continual cycle. Just like the snake eating its tail represents eternity. Okay, all that, and I just think that is a great way to prove that our souls are immortal. All right, and how, because see, here's the thing: is nature is always perfect. Nature is always perfect. So, if we were to say that there was no life after death, we would say that nature is not perfect, and that the universe should have exploded a long time ago, and to go against the great Hermetic axiom that as above, so below, which comes from the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which I think Albert Pike in his Morals and Dogma puts a great way. He translates it a little different way. And I'll read this to you real quick, and we'll probably close this video for now. Nothing surpasses and nothing equals as a summary of all the doctrines of the old world those brief words engraven by Hermes on a stone and known under the name of the Tablet of Emerald, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. The unity of being and the unity of the harmonies, ascending and descending, the progressive and proportional scale of the word, the immutable law of the equilibrium, and the proportion progress of the universal analogies, the relation of the idea to the word, giving the measure of the relation between the creator and the created, the necessary mathematics of the infinite, proved by the measures of a single corner of the finite. All this is expressed by this single proposition of the great Egyptian hierophant. What is superior is as that which is inferior, and what is below is as that which is above, to form the marvels of the unity. So, here's the thing. Everything everything that exists in the universe is one. Okay, so the great Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, okay, it proves. So, for instance, you can look at man. And in the mystery schools, man was the ultimate symbol. Man was the ultimate symbol because they believed, just as Hermes said, that if you can come to understand man and how man works, I mean mankind, not just man and woman, then you can understand how the universe works. All right? You can understand how the universe works. And Greg Braden in The Divine Matrix shows a lot of this stuff. This is a great book I just started reading. I've watched his 3.5-hour presentation that he did on it, and he proves a lot of this stuff with new science, okay, with new physics. You know, for instance, like the test of where they took two particles and they put them 7 miles apart, so 14 miles total apart. All right, they were at one time one particle. They split them and they shot them 7 miles each way, so 14 miles apart total. And they gave them two options, two pathways to go. Well, they instantaneously, no, no lag, went the exact same way. Okay, and whenever you did something to the one particle, the exact same thing happened to another particle. All right, and just like the government did experiments with DNA, where they took parts of a person's body, like skin or whatever, which has our DNA in it. Every part of our body has our DNA in it, our whole genetic code, okay? Just like a hologram. And they put it miles away, and whenever they did something to that person, it happened to his skin or whatever they took from him, okay? So that proves that somehow, some way, it defies laws of physics, because Einstein said that information cannot travel faster than the speed of light. It defies laws of physics. But somehow, some way, everything is united. Everything is united. Everything is one. And scientists, probably unknowingly, prove this with their Big Bang Theory by saying that everything, before it exploded into the universe that we know today, was smaller than a pea. Was smaller than a pea. And then it exploded and it became the universe as we know it today. So at one point, everything was one. And, physics has proved that when something is attached and then separated, they are one forever. Okay? So, by us being in that tiny little pea, we are united somehow, some way, mysterious way, to everything in the universe. So that's all I got today, guys. Grace and peace. If you're really interested in this stuff, guys, start picking up some books. Some of these books I'm talking about. Check out any of Manly P. Hall's stuff. I absolutely love Manly P. Hall, his teachings. Check out, the Bhagavad Gita, Plato. You'll find your way. It's very interesting how when you start reading something, it leads you into another thing. For instance, Manly P. Hall led me to Albert Pike in his Morals and Dogma, which I got a book cover on. But this is a great book. There's also been a lot of negative stuff about this book, but I don't care what you say. If you're going to talk negative about it, read it, and then tell me. If you can talk negative about it after you read it, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But the teachings in that book are also unbelievable. Albert Pike was a brilliant man. But anyways, start getting some of this book. Start practicing what you're learning, okay? That is extremely important. Wisdom means that you are practicing what you're learning, or I should say what you're remembering. But start practicing it. Start meditating. Start when you in your daily life, when you're out at your job. Start seeing everybody as start seeing God in everybody. Because see, here's the thing: the Christian church does not teach this, but God is in everyone. Just as Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within. Stop looking for it in churches and in preachers and temples. Go within and start seeing God within everything that you see. Okay? And I'm telling you, it will change your life. So, grace and peace. Love you guys. Talk to you later.